Hey everyone, this is Zach, the baby cinephile. I gotta say, I was a big fan of the first Den of Thieves back in 2018. To this day, I think it's one of the most unique bank heist films. It's gritty, it's intense, and it flips the usual dynamic between cops and thieves on its head, with the thieves being honorable and the cops being dirtbags. In the comments, let me know what you rated the first installment, because unfortunately, I think the sequel jumps the shark and commits every sequel sin known to cinema. First off, let's talk about Oshea Jackson Jr.'s character, Donnie. I think in the first film, he was unassuming. You didn't think he was going to be 3 steps ahead, but his character was written really well in a way where he was this street smart, street kid, but not a gangster, not a killer. He wanted to get through these heists in an honorable way because he was doing it for the thrills and not to kill or get in trouble with cops. And I think they made his character very easy to root behind in the first film. And I think the problem here in this movie, they kind of completely forgot what made the character really great and made Oshea Jackson Jr. shine in the role and just made him too cool for school in this movie, which is one of the few cinema sins I think that this movie commits and jumps the shark, where they create him in a way where he's this I'm so cool, too cool for school. I wear glasses inside of buildings and speak different languages. It just feels like there's a drastic jump from his character in the first film to this film where it almost feels like a different person. You couple all that with the fact that the character doesn't feel as intelligent as he did in the first film. There's so many mistakes he made in this movie and so many traps that he fell into that I was like, wait, the first movie he would have never fell for any of this stuff, and he had less resources in the first movie than he has in here, so it just made it really frustrating to watch because you're like, this is not the Donnie that I was rooting for several years ago. I feel like the character dumbed down as years passed, which made no sense. And to top it all off, for some reason Oshea Jackson Jr. decided to commit to trying to do a French accent because this movie takes a big part in France and he has to act like he's a little bit of French, and the accent is not convincing at all. It's actually very funny unintentionally and kind of hurts your emotional investment into a lot of planning of the movie because it could take you out of a scene because you're like, this is not good at all. How does this French connoisseur person that he's talking to not see that this accent is absolutely bogus? That's strike one. Strike two is the film ripping and stripping everything from the old film, the tone, the grittiness, everything that came with that first film away from it. All the things that made that movie stand out and feel unique is replaced with a generic globe-trotting heist film, to the point where they even use that yellow filter that America always use when someone goes to another country and all of a sudden the sky is yellow and everything has like a yellow tint on it. It really made the movie feel like any other generic globe-trotting film that you might have seen Kevin Hart in a Netflix movie. And I think this is part of where the movie jumps the shark, where the first film was this grounded, realistic, in the city and amongst the people that were in the city, Thieves. It becomes this big, like, global operation that's like a shadow organization, and it just jumps too many steps. This movie feels like this is a third or fourth installment in a franchise than a second movie. And the core of why that first movie worked so well and why I loved it so much is Oshea Jackson Jr.'s Donnie and Gerard Butler, who's one of my favorite action stars because he always gives it his all, and he gives it all in this movie as well. His character Nick, they were two very similar characters just on the different side of the coins and different morals. And unfortunately, this movie strips that away and kind of as this buddy kind of trying to make a buddy cop movie between the two of them, and it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel like a natural progression of these characters from the first film, especially where their dynamic was. It kind of once again felt like it was something that jumped the shark. It felt like this is something that should have happened maybe in the third or fourth film if they were going to do this, and I felt like Nick's character should have been aggressively trying to chase Donnie's character because of what happened in the first movie. I think that both the actors tried their best to make their dynamic as buds as fun as possible, but it just felt like there was a disconnect from the first movie. And strike three is that the movie lacks the thrills that an action heist thriller needs to have. And it's not because it doesn't try. The movie opens up with a heist, and it has all the details and things that you would think that would make it thrilling. But the movie doesn't take its time with it. It feels like it's rushing through to get to the meat of the story, even though the heist is an important part of the plot and things that happen there is why certain things throughout the rest of the plot happens. And all the things that they would need to do to really capture the audience and set the tone for the film in the beginning, they kind of discard away. I never felt like any of the characters were in danger. I never felt like any of the characters were going to get caught. And I felt like that was a continuous problem throughout the movie. So it set the tone for the film in the most negative way possible. Where the first film had this simplistic plot that was very engaging because of the characters and the way they built it up and the way they showcased the heist and the back and forth between the cops and the thieves, this movie replaces that with a very convoluted story where it takes its time to introduce all these new characters that don't have these unique personalities, and there's a mob story, and there's also the heist story, and then there's also these relationship stories that kind of go nowhere. So there's all these mixture of things that the movie is spending time on instead of the thing that we're here for. And it's the dynamic between the two main characters who are very, very interested in trying to give it his all. And there were some really interesting characters that was in the first film that don't return here. And I was hoping that these new characters they replaced them with were going to be as awesome, but unfortunately they're not. Because of the lack of interesting characters, the movie not having that much investment in terms of making things feel like it had stakes and building out the emotional investment you have on each character, the movie felt like it was dragging over the 2 hours and 24 minutes. There were points in the movie that I did feel bored. I felt like, why are we spending time on this? And then there's other parts I was really interested and invested in, but it was kind of an ebb and flow of interest, boredom. And then there's moments that I'm unintentionally like laughing at the movie instead of laughing with it, with intentional jokes. And it just felt off. Honestly, for the whole movie, I kind of was sat there like this, just eating my nacho cheese and drinking my soda and watching the movie like this. Okay, yeah, okay. Until the third act came where I kind of sat up and I was like, okay, I'm locked in, I'm invested, because the movie became what the whole movie felt like it should have been. Stakes started happening. The movie started becoming more intense. The way they put together the heist was kind of creative, and they did some things there I thought was really smart. And from the way that heist that this movie was leading up to started up until the fallout of everything that happens in there was really, really dope, and I had a lot of fun with it. The jokes were hitting, the action was really, really good. The movie that came before it just didn't feel like it was attached to the movie that we were watching currently. And then at the end of all of the things, they jump the shark again and do something that now when you like really think about it, it's like, how did that even happen? How did they come to that conclusion of all this? It was really, really dope and thrilling, and then they threw something in there that made the movie feel like really dumb. While I won't say this movie is bad, I just think that they dumbed down the film from what we got from the first one. I think that first one was smartly written with some really interesting characters where they kind of dumb things down here and try to recreate like a Fast and Furious kind of feel. And it makes it a disappointing sequel because it does all the things that a sequel should not do. It should enhance the first one, enhance the characters, progress the arcs and the story from the first one, while also leveling up and throwing some new wrenches in there. But this movie feels like it takes a completely different tone and kind of forgets what the first movie was doing, even though it's lightly referenced throughout. Instead of creating its own unique feel and unique lane, it feels like it's a crossover between Ocean's franchise and the Fast and Furious franchise. And in that process of doing that, it lost its way. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to give this film a D. Question of the day is, what is your favorite bank heist film? Drop your comments down below and let me know. And you can watch more of my content right now.